again, and welcome back to my kitchen. I have decided that I need to label myself the controversial canner. Isn't that a cute title? Because it seems to me that I bring you a lot of videos about controversial items that I can in my own home, and I share that information with you. As a disclaimer, I really do a lot of off-the-books type canning. In the United States, canning is pretty much suggested by following the USDA guidelines. And I, through my years of experience, have just decided that the USDA guidelines are, some of them are just kind of ridiculous. Now, dairy products is one of those things that the USDA does not recommend canning at home. And in all of the years and editions of the Ball Home Canning Blue Book, you will not find dairy anywhere in the Ball Blue Book. I don't care how updated of a version you have, you just won't find dairy. And that's because Ball pretty much follows the USDA guidelines. About 5 years ago, I had some sort of an epiphany or an awakening in my canning journey. I learned how to can back in the 1970s from my mom, and the only resource that we had at that point in time was, of course, her experience from her mother, what her mother taught her, she taught me, and also out of standard, I guess, approved canning books, and that mainly was the Ball Blue Book. So I was taught that dairy items in general were just a big no-no to can. And so that's how I proceeded through my life up until just a few years ago when, like I said, I had some sort of a point in my life where I had an awakening and I thought, wait a minute, why? Why can't I do these things at home? There's got to be a way to safely do it. And so in my journey, I did some research and I followed a lot of different sites and a lot of different people's methods. And then I started trying it for myself. And that is where I am sharing my experience with you, is not by what I've read, not by what I've seen other people do. I use some of the information as a guideline for what I personally do in my method, but in reality, the things that I share with you comes from my own personal experience of actually doing it in our home and seeing what the results are, seeing what the shelf stability is, seeing what the safety is of doing these things at home. And so today, as you can tell kind of what the theme is, dairy, I would like to show you how I can milk or cream or half and half. And honestly, it is one of the easiest canning projects you will ever hope to experience. It's just super, super simple. In my research, we can go to the grocery store and we can find evaporated milk in a can. We can find sweetened condensed milk in a can. You can even go to the grocery store and find milk, shelf-stable milk, in a cardboard box. This is a cardboard box, guys. Now, granted, this is ultra-high pasteurized, which means, now I had to look up my temperatures, so I'm going to read this to you. Ultra-high heat pasteurization is when the product comes to 135 degrees Celsius or 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 to 5 seconds. Now, when I was looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe they've added preservatives to it also. But, I looked on the side of the carton. I don't know if you can see it. The ingredients: milk and vitamin D. There is no preservatives in this at all. It's just milk and added vitamin D. I don't know why they added extra vitamin D. Milk is already, pretty good in vitamin D. But anyway, And so I was looking at that and I'm thinking, okay, if they can make that shelf stable just by an ultra high heat pasteurization process, why in heaven's name can't I can milk at home? So then I started researching a little bit more. And of course, in your grocery stores, you will find things like canned pastas. And of course, the USDA doesn't recommend that you can pasta at home either, or rice products. You know, there's this whole list of things that they do not suggest that you can in your own home. Well, number one, the USDA has not had any recent funding to continue actually researching these things and coming up with consistent results. The USDA has to spend millions of dollars on researching one item, and then they have to consistently get the same results a certain amount of times before they can recommend it as being safe to do at home. Number two, now when these manufacturing plants are pressure canning items, the process that the jars go through is a lot different than what we can do at home. Usually, you know, like with pasta and milk products and things like that, even like your canned vegetables, your plain canned vegetables and spaghetti sauce, the manufacturing plants have like these spiral type assembly lines or lines that the jars go through in this great big boiler slash pressure canner, okay? And so when the jars are going along that line, first of all, they're kind of spinning a little bit, and then they're also changing positions while they're spinning, okay? And so what's happening is that because that jar is in movement, or that can is in movement, that metal can is in movement, the heat penetration gets to all of the product consistently. Now, what we have here at home is we have either our stovetop pressure canners or our electric canners. And when we put our full jars into the canner, what does it do? It just sits there stationary. And so a lot of times our process time has to be longer than what they do in a manufacturing plant, because the heat is only penetrating from the outside, and it takes a while for it to get to the center of the product. Okay, are you following me? Because it's not being moved around, it's not being mixed while the heat is being applied, and so it takes a while for that heat to get into the center of the product. So a lot of these things in my mind kind of go along with why the USDA does not recommend canning certain things at home. So that has left home canners like you and I to do our own research and to use our own experience and our own brain power, will you, to blaze a path and find a way to can some of these things that aren't recommended by the powers that be. And so milk is one of them. Now, I can a lot of dairy products. I can milk, I can cream, I can half and half. Today I'm going to be canning half and half. But all of your milk products, milk, cream, half and half, they're all done the same way. And so just simply because I'm using half and half today, you can use regular milk. I also can cheese and I can butter safely at home. And I have been doing this for years now. I know that in other parts of the country, there have been people that have been canning milk for decades, generations of people. But where I was born and raised, it just wasn't a common thing to do, and so it was just on that no list of doing. So I didn't really discover and research this until approximately 5 years ago. But like I said, I did it in my own home, and I have witnessed the results and the shelf stability and the safety for myself. So I'm not just taking other people's word for it. I've actually witnessed it, and my family has consumed it now for years. So anyway, in canning milk, you can either use store-bought milk or you can use fresh raw milk. You can use goat milk. You can use any kind of milk that you have access to. But I will kind of let you know that I really feel, as far as canning milk is concerned, the fresher the better. And I'll share a little experience that I had with you. a couple of different times along the last 5 years of canning milk, I came across a couple of really good deals on close dated milk, which means at the store, they were only a couple of days from that best buy date that's on the carton. So they were going to expire in a couple of days or go sour or whatever you want to say it. And so knowing that I could can milk, you know, I had done it before. I thought, oh, I'm going to snag up this good deal and I'm going to can this up. Well, both times with that close dated milk are the only times that I have had a failure rate on my shelf. And I swear it's because they were close to being expired before I canned them. Now, I don't know if there was, you know, extra bacteria count or whatever in that older milk. You know, the longer it set, you know, it was getting close to going sour. Maybe there was extra additional bacteria in there. I really don't know, but I did have a failure rate. So I just want to stress to you that in my opinion, the fresher the milk, the better, okay? Whether that be store-bought or fresh raw milk out of your cow or your goat or whatever, the fresher, the better, in my opinion and from my experience. But milk is super, super simple to do. This will be one of the easiest canning projects that you'll ever hope to come across. I will also add that I personally pressure can mine, but you can also water bath it. The pressure canning method is that you slowly heat. Now in the pressure canner, you want to heat your jars of milk a little bit slower than other things that you would pressure can. Milk tends to want to overflow and siphon out of the jars very, very easily. And so when pressure canning, you want to heat that milk a little bit slower than normal and then bring it to a vent 10 minutes, and then you place your weight and bring the pressure canner up to whatever pounds of pressure you should be at for your altitude. For me, it's 10 pounds of pressure. So the minute my 10-pound jiggler starts to wiggle, that's when I shut my canner off. So this is a 0-minute process once you reach the pressure, okay? It'll take you a while to heat up your canner slowly, vent 10 minutes, and then bring it to pressure and then off. Now, if you're at a higher altitude, you know, when we can at 10 pounds of pressure, I made notes on this too, so excuse me while I look here. When we can at 10 pounds of pressure, we are reaching 240 degrees Fahrenheit or 115 degrees Celsius. Now, if you're at a higher altitude than what calls for 10 pounds, I highly suggest that you don't listen to the up to 10 pounds and off. If you're at a higher altitude and you are supposed to be canning things at 15 pounds of pressure, I want you to bring your milk up to that 15 pounds of pressure and then off also, because it takes you reaching that 15 at a higher elevation, it takes you reaching that 15 pounds of pressure to reach that same 240 degrees Fahrenheit inside your canner. And you definitely want to reach that temperature inside your pressure canner. Now for the hot water bath, you will hot water bath any size jar. And actually on the pressure canner, it doesn't matter what size jar you're using either. The method is the same, whether it's a pint, a quart, or a half-gallon jar. You're going to slowly heat your canner, vent for 10 minutes, bring it to pressure, and then turn it off. Now for hot water bathing, it's the same thing. It doesn't matter what size jar, but you're going to hot water bath this for 1 hour, whether it's a pint or a quart, or if you have a tall enough canner, even a half-gallon jar. But the difference with hot water bathing milk is when you are filling your canner, you want to only bring the water level up to the bottom of the screw-on band when you're doing milk. You don't want to submerge these under the 2 inches of water that is traditionally recommended for hot water bathing. When you're hot water bathing milk, you only want to bring the water level up to the bottom of the screw-on band, and then you want to do a gentle boil for the entire hour. You don't want a crazy, hard, rolling boil. You want a gentle boil for the entire hour that you process your milk. So the water bathing directions are a little bit different for milk than it is when you're traditionally water bathing other types of foods. So keep that in mind if you're going to hot water bath. Another thing that I will add before I share exactly the steps of what I do is that I know that a lot of people feel confident after they have canned their milk. They feel confident just cooling that, taking it off the shelf from storage, cooling it in the fridge, and then drinking it directly from the jar. This is just a personal thing for me. You can make your own decisions, just like you can make your own decision whether you really want to can milk in your home or not. If you want to listen to the USDA and follow their guidelines, that's fine with me. If you want to have the option of canning milk in your home, I am just showing you what I do. But in my own personal decision making, I have just decided that it is wonderful to have this shelf-stable milk, okay? And I use it for cooking and baking, but I personally, we do not drink it right from the jar unless I open the jar and heat the milk in a pan for about 10 minutes, and then I'll put it back in the jar and then cool it back off in the fridge. That's just a personal decision that I have made. Now, I know that there's a lot of people that drink it straight from the jar and they have not had any problems, but that's just a choice that I make. And so the milk and the cream and stuff that I can in our home is just for baking and cooking uses for me personally. Today I'm going to be doing half pints of half and half because these are just the perfect size to add for my, I have canned soups that call for cream. And so what I do is I pop open one of my jars of canned soup. Specifically, I love my Zuppa Toscana soup. And, excuse me, when I heat that to serve, I like to add some cream to it. And so pints of cream or half and half are just wonderful for that particular thing. And then I'm not stuck with a quart of half and half and I only use a little bit of it, and then I need to refrigerate it until I can figure out how to use up the rest of it. So I'm choosing to do pints today to show you how I can this. Now, one more thing that I do want to share with you is that you can can 1%, 2%, or whole milk. When you can milk, generally it comes out as the final result as a little bit higher percentage of richness in taste. So if you're canning skim or 1%, it's probably going to taste closer to 2% when you're done. If you're canning 2%, it's probably going to taste closer to whole milk when you're done. And if you can whole milk, it's going to taste like evaporated milk when you're done. And it is totally, totally normal to have your milk get a little tan colored when it's, done being processed or done being canned. This is totally normal. There's a lot of natural sugars in milk. And when you can that, they are going to tend to turn just slightly tan. Now, sometimes that happens to me, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not really sure if it's the type of milk that I'm using that differs. I really don't know, but sometimes it does get a little bit darker, and sometimes it comes out just absolutely beautiful and white. But, so, those are all the things. Again, my disclaimer, I am not telling you that this is an approved method, but I am telling you that I have done this in my home for 5 years, and I am absolutely comfortable saying that I feel like it's safe to do. So here is how I can milk or cream in my home. I'm going to tip the camera down and I'll show you what I got going on here today. Now, first of all, well, this was that milk in the shelf-stable milk. I'm going to get rid of this guy here. I have half and half, which I have taken out of the refrigerator, and I have allowed them to kind of come to room temperature, okay? So I've just let them sit out, and they've just been kind of coming to room temperature. Now, my canner is also prepared with the water, and I put cream of tartar in there to keep the hard water deposits off of my glass jars. But my canner is also at room temperature. Room temperature milk, room temperature jars, room temperature canner. Now, this is where the fun and the easiness comes in. Now, I've already peeled off that little poppy open thing. All you're going to do is you're just going to take your room temperature cream or milk, and you're simply going to pour it in your jars. Now, like I said, I think I mentioned that milk tends to like to overflow. There's something about the canning process, and it kind of boils in the jar, and it really likes to overflow or siphon out. And so I leave a good 1.5 inch headspace, okay? So I just bring my milk up to the shoulders of the jar. And this is true in pints, in quarts, or in half-gallon jars. I want that 1.5 inch headspace because, and especially in the pressure canner, not so much in the hot water bather because it's the jar is surrounded by water, you know, that kind of washes the overflowed milk off. But in the pressure canner, if you have overflow issues or siphoning issues, I'm not even kidding, that overflowed milk turns into cement on the outside of your jars. It is miserable to try to wash off and remove. So try to avoid having overflow or siphoning issues. And how I do that is I leave that 1.5 inch headspace. And again, I will mention, when I am heating my canner up, I heat it up slower than I normally do with other projects, okay? So we're just going to fill our jars with the room temperature milk up to that 1.5 inch headspace. Now these are going to be absolutely the perfect size for like when I go to have some home canned milk that I want to add cream to as I'm heating to serve it. This is just the perfect size for that project or for that need. Don't even need your funnel for this one. Just pour it right in. Now it feels like I have enough for maybe one more jar. So perfection, perfection. And just, all right. All right, so we have our half and half in our jars. Now, another really super important thing is I know that it's a real popular fad for people to wipe the rims of their jars with a vinegar-soaked cloth. Please, please listen. Do not use a vinegar-soaked cloth when you are doing any sort of dairy product. Milk, if you use vinegar-soaked cloth with milk or your cream is going to curdle inside of your jar as it cans. You don't want to drip vinegar in there. You just don't want it in the rim. And actually, when you're hot water bathing, do not add vinegar to the water of your canner when you're hot water bathing, because you risk that vinegar possibly getting in and underneath the lids, and that will curdle your milk, okay? So not that I really need to because I didn't spill anything, but just as a precaution, I'm just taking a wet water-soaked rag, no vinegar, water-soaked rag, and I'm just going to wipe those rims. And then place your lids and your screw-on bands. And then you're just going to screw them on fingertip tight, just like any other canning project. Screw them on fingertip tight. Okay, I'm going to end this up. I'm going to get my jars in the canner. I'm going to place my lid. And I'm going to turn my heat on to about medium on my gas stove. Now, like I said, it's very important when doing milk and cream particularly, not so much your cheese or your cream cheese or your butter, but particularly with milk and cream, very important to heat your canner a little bit slower than normal, because if you heat it too fast, it causes that overflow issue with milk. Don't know why that is. but it's just something that I found out through the years. So heat that canner a little slower. Okay, so I'm going to bring my canner slowly up to a vent, and then I will vent for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to place my weight, and once it starts jiggling or rocking, and if you want to use your readable gauge, if you know that your readable gauge is calibrated correctly, for 10 pounds, that's 11. You read 11 on the readable gauge. So either go up to 11 pounds on your readable gauge if you know that you can depend on its accuracy, or I'm going to place my 10-pound weight after my venting period, and once it starts rocking, I'm just going to shut off the heat. So I'm going to let my canner warm up slowly, and we'll be back in just a little bit. All right, guys, so I have heated my canner slowly, and you can see that now I probably vent my canners a little bit differently than everybody else does. I vent mine old school. But you can see that my lid lock pressure valve has not popped up yet. There's steam escaping from it, and also, of course, steam is coming out of the weight pipe. But this pressure valve lid lock is just about ready to pop up. So I'm just going to kind of remove a little of the moisture that's on top of it, protecting my hands, of course, with a rag because the canner is already hot, and there it will pop right up. Now, after that pops up is what I consider a vent. So now I'm going to time my vent for 10 minutes. And after that 10-minute period of time, that's when I'm going to place my weight and allow it to build pressure up to my recommended, because of my altitude, my recommended pounds of 10 pounds of pressure. But right now I've got my timer set for 10 minutes, and I'm just going to allow my canner to vent for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back. All right, guys, so my canner has vented 10 minutes. I'm going to shut off my timer, and now I have a 3-piece weight. This is something that you can order online. It does not come standard. I'm using a Presto canner. I love my Prestos. I have 3 of them. It does not come standard with the Presto canner. So this is something that you can order online. It's a 3-piece weight, and it has a center section and 2 rings. And so when it's all put together, it is a 15-pound weight. And if you take off that top ring, just that top one band, it becomes a 10-pound weight. So each piece of the 3 pieces is 5 pounds. So the center is 5, the first ring is 5, and the second ring is 5. So I've removed a ring, and this is 10 pounds. I'm going to just place that on my stem and just allow my canner to come up to pressure. Now at the first sign of that weight regulator, at the first sign of that jiggling, I'm just simply going to shut off my canner. But it'll take a few minutes for it to come up to pressure, so I'll be back in a few more minutes. All right, guys, so you can see that my 10-pound weight is just about ready to dance. It's not quite jiggling as hard as I would like to see it yet, but it is right on the verge. So we are getting there really, really quickly. And realistically, once you have any movement at all in your 10-pound weight, you're probably at 10 pounds of pressure. But, an extra, 45 seconds or a minute, it's not going to hurt anything, just to make sure that that weight is moving. So there we go. Now I have the movement that I want. You see how that changed? Now that's the movement I want. Now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to shut the burner off and allow my canner just to cool naturally, okay, just like you would for any other project. Just walk away from the canner and let it cool naturally. And after the pressure has gone down and my lid lock pressure vent has dropped, then I'll come back and I'll show you what else I do, just to kind of allow it to cool down a little bit more slowly and progressively, okay? So be back in just a little bit. All right, everybody. So I have allowed my canner to cool down. And as you can see, my lid lock or pressure valve has dropped down on its own. My readable gauge is down at 0, but this is what I really, really trust. And also my blow-off emergency valve on the back of the canner has dropped down on its own also. So now I know it's safe to remove my weights. Excuse me. So we'll set that aside. And now what I do, and I do this in every pressure canning session, after it's safe to remove my weight, I crack my lid open, I unlock it, and then I just slightly lift the lid and put it off to the side, just a titch. Not very much, but just like that. I hope the camera can pick that up. You can see the steam is coming out, but my lid is still covering the canner completely. And what this, excuse me, still kind of fighting the crud here, guys. There, now I think I can talk again. What this does is it just slows down the cooling process just even a little bit longer. And it prevents the cool room air from rushing into the canner and causing my extremely hot jars to siphon. So I just crack it open just ever so slightly and allow it to cool for about another 10 or 15 minutes before then I completely remove the lid. So I'm going to let it sit here for another 10 or 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. All right, so it's been about 15 minutes that I had the lid kind of cracked open just a little bit, and I let it cool off a little bit more. So now I feel like it's safe to just take that lid all the way off and remove the jars of half and half. And oh, these turned out really nice. You know, like I said, sometimes they're a little tan and sometimes they come out really white. These turned out really white today. Beautiful. And I had absolutely no siphoning or overflow. All right, I'm going to tilt the camera down just a tad here so you can see. Where's my cursor? Well, my cursor isn't going to come back on the screen. But you can see, now that's my cream of tartar in there. But before I tilted it, the water was completely clear. So here we are. See if I can move these over just a little bit. There we go. For some reason my screen is just messed up here. There, I got it. All right, now I know we're completely on frame. These are absolutely beautiful, guys. Just beautiful. Up to pressure and off. And you can see how lovely they turned out. So now I'm just going to let them sit undisturbed until they seal. And I will let them sit. I let them sit just like any other canned good for 10, 12, some people say 24 hours. I say if they haven't sealed within 2 hours, they're probably not going to seal. That's just my personal thing. But anyway, I will let them sit until they are completely cooled off and safe to handle, safe to take the rings off, wash up, label, and put on the shelves. I just, like I said, I really, really enjoy being able to have milk and cream on my shelves, particularly, you know, for baking and cooking needs. It comes in so handy. Another thing is that, you know, I live quite a ways from town, and so when I run out of milk, it's not just jumping in my car and 2 blocks down the road there's a store where I can buy more, and I don't really want to waste the gas money to be running into town all the time for milk or cream. So this way I can stock up on it and have it safely tucked away on my shelves for use at any time. But like I said, this is just one of the easiest canning projects that you will ever hope to run across, and it's a wonderful thing to have on hand, just in everyday life and for the future when shipping maybe becomes more of an issue. We all see price increases, and things are not always as readily available in our grocery markets anymore. And so this would be a really good time, if you feel comfortable doing it, this would be a really good time to stock up. But anyway, I hope that you enjoyed the information today. I hope that it gives you maybe the courage to go outside of your box and try it. Like I said again, I have been doing dairy products for over 5 years now in my canning journey. Of course, I've been canning many more years than that, but just in the last 5 years I started doing dairy, and I have had absolutely nothing but positive results on my shelves. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you enjoyed and found the information useful, and happy canning, everybody.